All right, so it is the second to last day of a week, if you can even call it that, in Chicago. So I've been really, really bored, and thus I decided I'm gonna make another video for no reason. I have my Joy Yi that my RH has gave to me. I'm gonna drink this, I think, while also perhaps doing a face and makeup just for funsies. And I think I'm gonna also talk about how I got into UT, University Theater, because I think there are very few people on campus that are even involved in it. So I imagine that someone that's coming into the college interested in doing taps of any sort could benefit from hearing how I did this as a club activity. Let's break her open, huh? Tastes a little interesting considering it's been sitting in my fridge for 2 days, but it's cute. Man, the continuity on this drink is gonna be really interesting going through these next shots. A little bit of background on me. So in high school, I was quite involved in theater, towards the end of junior year and senior year. And I don't know, I had a good time. I was never in any plays. I don't the idea of being a dog really freaks me out. But I participated in stage crew, which means that I did sound and lighting, and that was really, really fun. I got a chance to meet a lot of the theater people in the actual plays, and that was really neat because I hadn't really interacted with any of them before. So I got super into that, and towards the end of senior year, I started getting, I don't know, a bit more involved in the theater process itself. So I was kind of sneaking onto stage during the productions and helping out with small things, being a stage manager of sorts, if you could even call me that, and hanging out with everyone in theater. And I realized there are some cool people there, not to lie. People would be oh, let's listen to Hamilton, and of course I know all the lyrics or whatever, and have strong opinions about other things as well. So it kind of made sense. So entering college, I was super into that idea of doing some sort of theater. I didn't really know what that was gonna entail, but I had this idea that I'm well, maybe in the past, because I did stage crew, I think I've learned enough about acting to perhaps audition for something. And I guess otherwise I would have been okay doing just normal backstage things I was doing before, but acting's cool, I guess. Come around to the first week of school, I started hearing about this thing called Theater 24, which is really neat, and I started doing that. So that happened at the first weekend after everyone returned on campus. That was a Friday night, and on Friday at 8 p.m. everyone met together, the volunteer writers, directors, and actors, and we all met in the FXK, which is on the 3rd floor of the Reynolds Club, which no one knows about, I guess. We started off by doing some really basic introductions, your name and your major, and everyone's pretty much just meeting each other and getting a vibe, because ultimately what was going to happen is that in the hours that were going to follow 8 p.m., the writers were going to leave and write a short sketch. And that blows my mind because overnight writing to me does not seem overly fun, especially for, just being back at school. But we live, I guess. So people did quick introductions and we were kind of just chilling, and eventually, they told all the actors to leave. Afterwards, they had the directors pick names out of a hat, and this was maybe 8:30. I just want to emphasize how fast this happened. So the actors' names got picked out of a hat, so we all kind of knew who they were. And so then the writers were going to have to, write a sketch using their names and also a prompt of sorts. In fall of 2019, the prompt was mathematical ideas that don't make sense. I don't really know what that meant, but essentially all you had to do was incorporate your mathematical concept into the plot of your play somehow. It didn't have to be a math play, but for instance, my group's play was The Worm Problem. I was directing, and overnight, the writers wrote about a man who is working at a company, and his boss tells him that he needs to solve the worm problem. And then we arrived back at the FXK at 8 a.m. the next day, And the goal at that point would be to put on a full production by 8 p.m. of that day, which meant that I spent the entire day at the FXK, which was difficult because you enter and it would be morning and then you would leave and it would be night. Like meeting these third years and fourth years in my group, they're a bunch of boys, and that was pretty neat. I like talked to them about, you know, majors and how the college is, because I was super brand new at the time, which was super lovely and helpful. And we ended up with a product that was like really fun, actually. The writers wrote about a man who is working at a company and his boss tells him that he needs to solve the worm problem. Of course, this guy has no idea what the worm problem is. So he goes around racking his brain trying to figure out what this worm problem is. And that's the vast majority of the play, to be honest. But it gets a little wild because his boss, who's also freaking about the worm problem, every time he gets nervous, he puts lotion all over himself. So essentially he'd be yelling at his coworker to, you know, figure out what this worm problem is. And then it was a special request from the writers that this like third year in the college, every time that he was stressed out in the play, he had to rub like a third of this like huge bottle of lotion on his body. He would like clap his hands together and the lotion would just go flying, and it was so traumatic to watch. I decided based on my experience with Theater 24 that it was something I like to do. So I was talking to a lot of people that were kind of running Theater 24 that weren't involved with TAPS, and I was like, how do I like get into this? And they tipped me off that there was a secret group chat in Facebook where people that were involved with Theater 24 and doing productions could, you know, ask for assistance. And I was like, okay, let me just like get a small thing. Maybe I could do something similar to what I did in high school, and like maybe it'll be fun because I can like meet people, I guess. I find this group chat. It's called Upsilon Tau, and I signed in. And I quickly found that there were actually like lots and lots of opportunities. So even like if you want something like super small, it's super possible to just like find something that will like suit your availability. I quickly found a spot open for a production called A Winter's Tale. So I jumped in about week 6, I believe, which is quite late. I was just really excited to like be a part of everything going on. So I like, even though I was so late and everyone kind of knew each other already, I was like very enthusiastic about being a part of it regardless. So I showed up to maybe more rehearsals than I needed as assistant production manager, which meant that I was pretty much just doing like odd jobs for the production manager. So I showed up, I did my time, and I like got to meet a lot of people who kind of like showed me that like, yeah, like theater's nerdy, but there's some neat people here that can like do some cool things. So needless to say, I was kind of like adoring the whole system, even if like I didn't even understand the plot of the Shakespeare play that I was working on. So come time for the actual production, and I had been going to like every dress rehearsal that we had. And so usually in theater, we have something called Tech Week, which means that you have to show up to every single rehearsal. And again, I didn't really need to be there because my job was not that important, but I was so excited to see how things were coming together. I did anyway, and I sort of just sat there and I did my homework. I got to do a whole bunch of really cool things I'd never done before. And I felt a sense of responsibility as well, because ultimately like the actors are being taken care of by the staff itself. So while talking with everyone, I found out that a whole bunch of people that were in the production crew were planning on going to a different musical in the winter. And that musical was called The Old Man and the Old Moon. And I was like, ooh, you know what I love even better than Shakespeare plays? Musicals. My production manager offered to speak to the director for me. The director was just a 4th year in the TAPS program. I was like, okay, cool. But of course I was super scared because potentially being an assistant director for something is very intimidating, considering that I had only been in the college for like a few months. So I'm gonna have to do this off camera. One eye done. Only took me like 10 minutes. Where was I? So to my surprise, the director accepts me and I started going to all these pre-production meetings. And the thing to note about Theater UT is that, you know, a production might be at the last week of the quarter, but things have been going on in terms of like getting it all together since like even before the quarter started. So this is like a several month endeavor. So before winter quarter started, I started going to a whole bunch of meetings about, you know, getting things together. So we were talking with the pro staff, and we were meeting with the set designer, who was also a student, which is quite neat, and figuring out just what we had in the budget. I think we had something like $5,000, but I know that we went over that, so, you know, things can change, and the committee cannot give you more money, I guess, if you needed it, but our production was one that was very pricey, so we definitely needed everything we could get. I think like the first Monday of the second week of school, we did casting, and so it was me and the director and the assistant director in a room at Cobb. And that was interesting to say the least, because, you know, auditions can be very hectic in general. I certainly knew that was true when I got rejected when I auditioned in the fall. Essentially what happened was that we had people come in with prepared dialogue excerpts, and everyone had like, you know, a minute to read it, and then we'd ask them to do it in a little bit different way, just to see like how they would react to getting told a different direction. And honestly, like, to summarize it in a quick few sentences, if you were open and just like gave it your best to try to, you know, do the redirect, then we liked you. And if you were the type of person that, you know, would scooch back like physically during the audition to avoid like being close to us, then we took that into great consideration and didn't enjoy your audition as much. We also did a whole bunch of like weird like team building exercises, which were pretty useless, but I guess if we were deciding between one person or another, and, you know, one person did well in the team building exercises and one person didn't, then I guess we would ultimately go with you, or, you know, vice versa. After 2 days, I believe, of hectic auditioning, we finally had our cast. We spent a lot of time in Logan debating, you know, over one person or another with all the other plays who also might have wanted one person, which I hated, but we finally got started. One thing I did not know at the time is that directors need to be there every day of rehearsals. And like, yeah, that makes sense in retrospect. But my thought was, because I was an assistant and I did so little during my assistantship as production manager, I figured that it was going to be the similar case here. So I was asking the director, like, what days, like, should I not come? And he was like, none of the days you should not come. So I did get myself into an 18-hour week deal, but, you know, that came with a lot of really fun things as well. So I got to meet people and really get to know them, and they're from like all areas of the college. And actually, we also had a few grad students too. And it made what we did all the better at the end, you know? Because I just like knew everyone, and I spent all this effort to like make it good. So when the time to perform came around, I was having the best time. Now that I'm looking like a proper e-girl, I can finish my story. So essentially, everything worked out super well, and I had a great time. It just meant that, you know, things were gonna get a little difficult when we got canceled by Corona. We did actually perform all of our shows at reduced capacity, but we were really glad to even like be there, because they very well could have just told us like, no, not at all, don't go. Overall, if you want to, you know, make some really close friends, have some cool cast after parties, which are nothing like high school after parties, let me just tell you that, and like ultimately feel pride over all the, you know, effort you've put in to make something really fun to show everyone, then I would super suggest UT Theater. For me, the pathway was super easy, and I imagine that I'm not the only one. So if you know, are looking for something to do, I would super suggest picking up even just like a small part in a production, and you can get to know some really cool people. So hopefully this little message was helpful to you. My makeup looks pretty okay, I would say, and I am done my boba, so we can call this little discussion over. So, bye!